Okay, the next item of business is a statement by Graham Day on simplifying the post-school education and skills funding body landscape in Scotland. The Minister will take questions after his statement, therefore there should be no interventions or interruptions, and I call on the Minister. Up to 10 minutes, please.
Presiding Officer, a fortnight ago we announced progress on our plans to reform the post-school education and skills system. We announced that the Scottish Funding Council would assume responsibility for all apprenticeships, and the Student Awards Agency Scotland would take on responsibility for further education student support. So one body, the SFC, will be responsible for funding provision, that is teaching, training and related activities, and one body, SAS, will be responsible for student support. This decision was informed by what stakeholders told us through our public consultation, and our approach is designed to put the learner at the centre. It aims to ensure our whole education and skills system works as a single system that is easy to navigate and where everyone takes responsibility to deliver excellence for all. Of course, reform is a bit more than the individual parts of the system. It's about the whole system working together. Presiding Officer, yesterday the Tertiary Education and Training Funding and Governance Bill was introduced to the Scottish Parliament. First and foremost, the bill consolidates the SFC responsibilities for securing the provision of national training programmes, apprenticeships and work-based learning. The bill establishes for the first time a statutory framework for apprenticeships in Scotland, recognising the value that we place on apprenticeships and in the delivery of the First Minister's mission to drive economic growth. It also gives ministers the power to commission the SFC to deliver new national training programmes. It means we can address training needs that might not otherwise be met, making it easier to ensure programmes are aligned to the Government's floor priorities. Furthermore, the bill improves the SFC's governance and how it oversees tertiary education, including a greater focus on the needs and interests of learners. The bill also knits together SFC's existing responsibilities with its new responsibilities for apprenticeships and work-based learning in a coherent way, and in which we hope will be welcomed by employers. Today is a significant milestone for tertiary education and training. The bill enables us to move from 3 funding bodies to 2. In the programme for government, we said we would reform the education and skills funding system so it is easier to navigate and responsive to learners and skills priorities, breaking down silos and reducing bureaucracy. The bill moves us closer to that. The other half of the funding body simplification, if I get the word out, is the movement of further education student support from the SFC to SAS. This change does not require legislation, which means we can progress at pace and are doing so. I should be clear that there will be no immediate change to funding arrangements for college or university students, but bringing student support responsibilities together unlocks opportunities. This change enables new ways of administering student support, collecting data and providing coherent information and guidance to learners and institutions. Before I go on, I want to thank our 3 public bodies, the SFC, SAS and Skills Development Scotland, and their staff for their help in getting us to this point. I'm grateful for the input from colleges, universities, employers, training providers and others whose insights have absolutely informed our decisions. I know that change can be unsettling. If the bill is passed, the SFC will need to evolve to encompass its expanded remit. Responsibilities for apprenticeships and national training programmes will move from SDS to the SFC. The work that SDS has done with apprenticeships has given us firm foundations from which to build, and the skills and the experience of SDS staff will be invaluable in establishing the new arrangements and shaping an improved offering. A refocused SDS will continue to play a vital role in skills planning, careers advice and support for employers. It would, of course, be remiss of me not to acknowledge the influence of James Withers and his review in our reforms, and I want once again to thank him for that important work. I want to be clear also on why we are doing this. First and foremost, we want to deliver the best service we can for learners and employers. Secondly, we want to make things simpler for colleges, universities, training providers and employers. Last but not least, we have to get maximum value from every pound we invest. The bill makes provision for Scottish apprenticeships and work-based learning, laying the foundations for apprenticeship reform. We can take the best of what works now and change what does not. The bill enables improvement but leaves room to develop future apprenticeship policy with stakeholders. Employer engagement is critical to all of this, so we're building a dedicated employer network to guide the work. We're sharpening the focus of the Apprenticeship Approvals Group and the Standards and Frameworks Group, ensuring they play a vital role in the transition process, and will be broadening employer participation at every stage and indeed across the reform landscape. The bill also makes provision for a new apprenticeship committee of the SFC. Furthermore, the bill makes provision for apprenticeship certificates to help apprentices demonstrate that they have gained the relevant training, experience and qualifications. This leads me on to qualifications reform. We must have up-to-date, accessible qualifications fit for learners at all stages of their lives. Work is underway to fully understand the qualifications landscape in tertiary education. These qualifications must be valued by employers and learners, clearly signalling the skills and knowledge that individuals have acquired. And crucially, they must be flexible enough to adapt to the ever-changing demand of the modern economy. Tertiary education and training must also deliver the skills that employers need and, importantly, meet the skills requirements we have in 21st century Scotland so that we can address net zero, support our NHS and grow a thriving Scottish economy. I've engaged extensively with ministerial colleagues across government and with our key stakeholders to develop our approach to skills planning, which is rooted in evidence of what works and what is needed. Tertiary education and training must be responsible to both regional and national skills needs. A few weeks ago, I met again with the Regional Economic Partnership Network, where we had a good discussion about skills planning across regions. We still have work to do, but I'm pleased with the progress we are making and the co-designing approach we're taking. High-quality careers advice is essential to getting the right people into the right jobs, tackling poverty and growing the economy. It's vital in schools to help young people realise their potential. We will shortly be announcing new arrangements for the Career Services Collaborative. The outgoing interim chair, Graham Smith, Secretariat and all members of the Collaborative have achieved much since its formation. Their work forms a great base for progressing to the next phase, importantly focusing on improving careers advice and support. Presiding Officer, I've spent a good deal of time meeting with stakeholders, especially employers and training providers engaged in apprenticeship delivery, listening to their views as we've developed our thinking. I've also engaged with a number of MSP colleagues along the way, for which I'm grateful. Today, with the bill beginning its formal processes, I'm committed to ramping up that engagement over the coming months to ensure that, if Parliament supports the bill, we're ready to implement the outcomes in a way which best serves the interests of our future apprentices, employers and needs of Scotland's economy. Finally, I want to work with members from all parties in the Scottish Parliament to lay the foundations for lasting reform of the kind that I think we generally recognise is needed. Presiding Officer.
Thank you. The Minister will now take questions on the issues raised in his statement and tend to allow around 20 minutes, after which we'll need to move to the next item of business. And grateful, as ever, if members wishing to ask a question who haven't already done so, we press the request to speak buttons. And I call first Miles Briggs.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. And can I start by thanking the Minister for advance sight of his statement and also the engagement with members on the bill to date. There are some welcome reforms in the bill which we on these benches agree with, but also we want to see the Scottish Government move further. Yesterday, the Education, Children and Young People's Committee heard from college leaders on the impact which the loss of both the Skills Boost Fund and Flexible Workforce Development Fund has had on upskilling and supporting key employers and skill shortages, especially around social care. So I hope there's an opportunity with what the Minister has announced to correct that. It is clear that we also need to see more business involvement in regional skills development work, and we on these benches would like to see additional reforms to provide for more private sector funding to be made available to the college sector in the delivery of key sector courses going forward. So can I ask the Minister two questions? How does he envisage the employer network to actually embed and help businesses influence and secure funded courses which are currently not being provided to actually upskill the workforce? Many employers are telling us are not being provided. And as in the case in England, where employers can access support from the apprenticeship levy, not only for training but also towards apprenticeship pay, is this a reform ministers will also look to take forward to help significantly increase the numbers of apprenticeship SMEs can deliver in communities across our country? Minister.
Presiding Officer, there's a lot to unpack in there. On the point about securing non-public money for colleges, I think this is an area that I know this is an area that we are engaged actively with the college sector on, because there is a great opportunity there. Some colleges do very well in that space, others much less so. And there is an appetite from businesses, national and local, for that sort of access. In terms of the influence that they can bring to bear, we have to be careful here. This is about ensuring that the employer voice is heard, so that colleges and other training providers can understand what it is they require by way of what the colleges and other institutions are producing. That already happens in some localities, not so much in others. We're trying to bring a bit of standardisation there. On the point about the use of the apprenticeship levy, I'm not going to stand here today and say that I would agree necessarily with the approach that Miles Briggs has articulated. But on his point about SMEs, there is undoubtedly more to be done here. One of the issues that we hear repeatedly is that what puts SMEs off about taking an apprentice on is about the bureaucracy around it. And we have been exploring whether there's an opportunity to do something there that takes some of that load off of the SMEs and allows them, because they are the bedrock of the Scottish economy. So there's a number of things, and I look forward to continuing to engage with Miles Briggs on these.
Daniel Johnson.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Well, I note the Minister's attempt to strike a collegiate tone. I'll say to him what I said. Repeat what I said to him in private. My fear is that the government moving too slowly and putting structural change ahead of functional reform. And certainly it's been many months since he's met with any members of our front bench, and this statement, I think, falls short of what we understood the direction of the government to be and begs some serious questions. First of all, the previous system with SAB and SDS, while imperfect, had a very clear role for employers and trade unions within the governance structures. The proposals here for an employers' network has no such formal governance structure. So how can industry have confidence they will be at the forefront in shaping the future skills landscape, because it appears their role has been diluted? Furthermore, it appears somewhat that the Scottish Government has taken inspiration from the Monty Python Dead Parrot sketch when it comes to its approach on SDS. This appears to be an ex-agency, an agency no longer of any function. I'm surprised the Minister didn't describe it as being the Norwegian Blue of agencies. A bit like Michael Palin's pet shop owner, he's claiming it still has a function. But what is its function if it is no longer even providing careers advice, which is what we understood it was going to have as its primary function?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, let's start at the end of that. I made it very clear in my speech that what SDS will be continuing to do, and that includes careers advice. What I talked about was an expanded role for the Careers Collaborative. So far from diminishing SDS's role in that space, I also talked about its role in employer engagement, continuing role, and its role in the skills space. So SDS will continue to play a part in this. On the point about diluting the employer's voice in this, I've been very clear. And I've been very clear with employers, and I think that's why they would take confidence in what we're doing, that we're expanding that role. We're trying to weave the employer's voice into absolutely everything we do, because it's vital we do. And I met with SAB a few months ago, and in that most recent conversation, and we talked about the future role for the employer's voice, what they said to me was they weren't precious about structure or forum. What they wanted to be assured of was that the employer's voice would continue to be heard, and that is what we intend to do. And if the member was listening to my speech at the start, I made the point there are two committees of SAB which will continue through this process, certainly through the transition part of the process, and who knows, perhaps beyond. And I anticipate their members to be heavily involved in the work that we'll take forward.
Thank you. And I call Rona Mackay to be followed by Ros McCall.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The outline business case for reform talks about building on the best of what we have today. Can the Minister speak to the strong foundations of Scotland's post-school education and skills system and how simplifying the funding body landscape can unlock further potential in the sector?
Minister.
The whole point about what we're trying to do is to create a more transparent and more agile system. And there is no doubt that the system as it's currently configured, as well as being quite complex and confusing, I don't think anyone believes makes best use of public money. So it's the opportunity that this bill provides to take forward a series of reforms. I'm not going to stand here and pretend this is the end game. Far from being the end game, it is an enabling power, essentially, to allow us to make the changes in conjunction with employers and other stakeholders to get this right for the future, and that's what we intend to do.
Ros McCall to be followed by George Adam.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Scotland's apprenticeship system is essential for skills development, which needs sustained investment. With ongoing labour market challenges, it's crucial that funding structures are better aligned to support apprentices and the economy. So given the recommendations in the Withers Review, which highlights the need for better coordination between the Scottish Government, the Scottish Funding Council, the Skills Development Scotland, can the Minister confirm that the transfer of funding responsibilities from SDS to the SFC ensure apprentices are going to be finally properly funded and aligned with Scotland's needs? And how many additional apprenticeship places does the Minister think this will actually create? Minister.
I think the member makes a good point to start with about the nature of the landscape. And there is no doubt that, as it's currently configured, we do not get best value or the best return in a number of senses. Part of that is because you have a fragmented system where two different bodies are, in some respects, funding the same provision. We believe that making the changes that we've alluded to here, it gives us the opportunity, as I said before, to get a hold of this and shape the offering in a way that will be more transparent, but also more responsive to the needs of the economy. Now, everyone says to me, we would like more apprentices and we'd like more money for those apprentices. That's the nature of us. No one ever says, Minister, we've got enough money. And I'm not going to stand here and say that we have forecast that we will be able to create X number more apprentices out of this. What we need to do is take these reforms, presuming the Parliament agrees to them, and in parallel with that, develop this offering at the same time, so that, if the Parliament agrees, we have an offering that is much better aligned to what employers are looking for and their young people deserve. Because we need, at the heart of this, should be an approach that says we want to give our young people long-term, sustainable, well-paid employment. If we take that alongside the point about the economy, then I think we will make progress.
George Adam, to be followed by Pam Duncan-Glancy.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I was interested in what the Minister had to say during his statement and what he just said there, and I was wondering if he could comment on how consolidating funding streams for post-school education skills will contribute to Scottish...
Can you bring your microphone up, Mr Adam?
Thank you, Kerry.
Start again, please, Mr Adam.
I was interested in what the Minister had to say with regards to the answer to the last question and in his statement itself. And I was wondering if he could comment on how consolidating funding streams for post-school education and skills will contribute to the Scottish Government's mission to grow the economy.
Minister.
Well, I think the issue we have here, if one understands the landscape, at the moment, the funding mechanism for apprenticeships sees very obvious funding provided through the SFC, but there is additional funding provided in some instances through SDS, through SFC in the latter case, by way of college credits. It's not a transparent system. I think we need to bring forward greater transparency and agility. And I think in doing that, we have the opportunity as well to better align what it is we're offering and providing with the needs of the economy. And I think if we pull that together, we will get into the kind of place that we're looking to get to.
Pam Duncan-Glancy, to be followed by Kenneth Gibson.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Scotland's colleges told committee yesterday, and I believe this is absolutely vital to our future, that they are vital anchor institutions dedicated to delivering skills training and providing education at all stages of life and in our communities. They also said that to keep doing that, they need their government to deliver real reform to deliver the agile, flexible system their learners need and employers want, both to improve collaborations with schools and industry too. So can I ask the Minister, the bill today proposes structural reform. What will he do to deliver real reform that colleges need?
Minister.
Well, it is a fact, I think I'm right in saying, that Colleges of Scotland welcomed these reforms, because I think they see the opportunity that arises from them to produce a system that may well benefit the colleges in some instances, but more than anything benefit the learner. But I have to be clear today that we will have a continuing mixed apprenticeship offer. There will be involvement for the private training providers in all of this as well. But as I said, Scotland's colleges have welcomed what it is that we're proposing here, and I'm committed to working with them and others to sharpen up this model. And there is an opportunity here for the colleges to step forward into some space that they don't currently occupy on the apprenticeship landscape, providing they can provide the kind of holistic wraparound support that our apprentices are entitled to expect from the system.
Kenneth Gibson, to be followed by Ross Greer.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I welcome the Minister's statement. He is aware of skill shortages in many traditional areas such as engineering and construction, shortages impact on economic growth. How will this reset help deliver the key skills Scotland requires, and will the Government redouble its efforts to encourage more women and girls to study, seek apprenticeships and employment in these vital sectors?
Minister.
There's also works underway across the Government to, and with our key stakeholders to develop our approach to skills planning. For example, we're in the process of developing an advanced manufacturing skills action plan, and we will engage with the sector to assess options and agree a package of interventions aimed at increasing skills supply. We're progressing with the apprenticeship reform, as we've heard today. And as part of that, we're going to look to see what, if we can break down any barriers, perceived or actual, to the participation of women and girls in occupations where they're underrepresented. These changes also provide the opportunity to make sure that education and training, including apprenticeships, are readily accessible to young people with disabilities.
Ross Greer, to be followed by Willie Rennie.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Over the last decade, a number of colleges and universities have reneged on fair work agreements that they'd come to with their campus trade unions. When asked about this last year, the then Chief Executive of the Scottish Funding Council explained that they lacked the powers to intervene effectively in these situations, but that she had proposed such powers to the Scottish Government ahead of this bill. So can I ask the Minister if those proposals have been reflected in the bill and if the SFC will have the power to intervene where a college or university management breaches a fair work agreement?
Minister.
Within the bill is a power that strengthens the ability of the SFC to require universities and colleges to do certain things, particularly with the provision of information. It specifically requires secondary legislation to allow ministers the opportunity to essentially list what those areas could be. At the moment, it's sufficiently open to be these things can be explored. I'm happy to discuss that with Ross Greer because I think it's imperative that fair work is at the heart of what all of our institutions are delivering.
Willie Rennie, to be followed by Kevin Stewart.
I support the bill. I think the single source of funding and the careers reforms I think are welcome. But there clearly is a nervousness, including from the Chamber of Commerce, about the employer voice. If you move the funding from an employer-based body, SDS, through to an education-based body, the Funding Council, there's clearly a nervousness about that, particularly, as we heard yesterday in the committee, that there is concern that the funding model for further education doesn't necessarily meet the flexible needs of employers. So can I invite the Minister to have a meeting with me and the Chamber of Commerce to see if we can find a solution to this nervousness?
Minister.
So, I met with the Chambers of Commerce some time ago. I'm happy to take Willie Rennie up on his invitation. Just to offer some reassurance for the Chamber today, though, the bill requires ministers to have regard to the desirability of including persons who have experience of and shown capacity in the provision of apprenticeships or work-based learning in membership of the SFE. This is one of the changes that the bill allows us to do. And I'm keen to take the opportunity that this year affords us with changes in the membership of the SFE to ensure that there is that experience on the board. I think that's essential. I've already highlighted the work that will be done around the committee, the experience. But I'm disappointed if the Chamber of Commerce have paid attention to what's been going on over the last year and still nervous, because we have engaged extensively with employers and gained a lot of positive feedback from them. But if there is that nervousness, I'm happy to do something to address it.
Kevin Stewart, to be followed by Pam Gossel.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Now is the time to significantly ramp up investment in green skills, and reforming the post-school learning system is key to that investment in Scotland's economic future. I therefore welcome the Scottish Government's recent announcement on funding for colleges to support the offshore wind skills pipeline. Can the Minister comment on how simplifying the skills funding body landscape will further help colleges and universities to deliver the green skills agenda?
Minister. The post-school education and skills system is already supporting the transition to net zero. However, we can and we must go further. The system's got to be able to respond at greater pace and with greater impact to meet the challenges and the opportunities that the transition to net zero is placing upon it. That's one reason why reform is a must and why these changes are so important. Our proposals will help to make the system more responsive to the Government's 4 priorities, including tackling the climate emergency. And I think taken together with the work on skills planning, these changes can help to deliver more green skills. The bill, for example, will establish for the first time a statutory framework for apprenticeships in Scotland, and this is anticipated to facilitate different and more transparent ways of funding apprenticeships. It could be used, for example, to shift the emphasis onto more or different apprenticeships that have a focus on achieving net zero. But to be clear, and I reiterate this, Kevin Stewart rightly referenced colleges and universities, but we will have a mixed apprenticeship offering, which private trained trainers will have a role in.
Pam Gossel to be followed by Bob Doris.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Earlier this week, I visited West College Scotland in my region of Western Bartonshire. I witnessed the excellent work they do in training apprentices in various fields such as engineering, nursing, construction and building and many more. As the Minister will know, apprenticeships play an important role in Scotland's economy. However, officials expressed concern over the uncertainty when it comes to funding. The Minister has just said that there will be no immediate change to funding arrangements of college or university students. Therefore, I would like to ask if the Minister can guarantee that institutions of further education will get the funding they deserve.
Minister.
Presiding Officer, I think we all know where this is going, because it's a bit rich from a Conservative member to rock up here today and talk about more money for colleges and more money for universities when her party wants money for tax cuts. And you cannot, as I keep saying, square that circle. So if she wants to go to college and sympathise with them about more funding, I hope she's been good enough to be honest with them and say, by the way, if we'd got our way, there'd be even less money available.
Bob Doris to be followed by Martin Whitfield.
Thank you very much, Minister. As Presiding Officer, rather. As we've heard, Minister, there will be a shift from 3 post-school education and skills funding bodies down to 2. Some might ask why the Scottish Government didn't take the opportunity to reduce that to a single funding body. So I'd quite like to hear what the benefits are of having those 2 funding bodies, that consolidation.
Minister.
The option was chosen because it simplifies the tertiary education system by providing clear and separate remits for our public bodies. It means that the SFC has responsibility for funding all teaching and learning provision, and SAS has responsibility for all student support funding. It is less disruptive than moving to a single funding body, but still takes us in the direction of what James Withers rightly called for. We also decided to proceed with the 2-body approach based on consultation with stakeholders and the findings of the outlined business case. But I do want to make the point, Presiding Officer, and I think it goes to some of the comments we've heard already today. Changing structures alone will not deliver the reform that we all know needs to happen here. This is an enabling process that will allow us to make the changes that we require to make.
Thank you. The Minister generously didn't take up his full allocation of 10 minutes. So I can take the 2 colleagues who still want to ask a question. First, Martin Whitfield, to be followed by Stephen Kerr.
I'm very grateful, Deputy Presiding Officer. Can I take the Minister to his comments about the careers advice? Because within the statement, he talked of a refocused SDS having a vital role in careers advice. In response to one of the questions, he said the SDS will play a part. But in another part of the statement, dealing with the Careers Service Collaborative, he talked about announcing shortly new arrangements for that. Now, the CSC exists in part as a mechanism for the Scottish Government and other policymakers to consult and engage with careers services. So going forward, who will have responsibility for expert-tailored careers advice for our young people at school?
Minister.
So, the role of SDS as the National Career Service will continue. Its role within the Careers Collaborative will change. The Careers Collaborative, with co-chairs, will report to ministers and deliver to a vision that ministers will set. Quite a simple, straightforward vision. What I'm looking for is for the Careers Collaborative component parts to all take responsibility here for the delivery of careers advice. So SDS deliver in schools, that is their responsibility, and a degree of wider responsibility. But we need to see careers advice delivered through DYW, in our colleges, in our universities. And the challenge that will be set all of the participating members is to take forward that responsibility, delivering to a clear and agreed message.
Okay, and finally and briefly, Stephen Kerr.
Yeah, the Minister's a good chap, but he has to accept he's dismembered SDS, and yet somehow it lives on. But perhaps he can elucidate on how these changes will ensure that apprenticeships and college places are held in equal esteem with university degrees, because that's a critical issue. And would he also reflect on my previous suggestion to rename graduate apprenticeships to degree apprenticeships?
Minister.
So I took that suggestion away and tested it with university colleagues, and they were split roughly 50-50. I think the critical point about graduate apprenticeships is not their name, but it's the place they hold in the landscape. Now, he touched rightly on parity of esteem, but I want to see the graduate apprenticeship model improved. We currently have a group of, led by Steve Decent, the principal at GCU, looking at how we further develop the graduate apprenticeship model, how we expand that offering as part of the overall package. But he makes a very good point about parity of esteem. And it's also about read across. We need to ensure that foundation apprenticeships, modern apprenticeships, graduate apprenticeships, there's a cohesion to what that offering is, so that we capture the maximum number of young people who want to go down those pathways and ensure it's the right pathway for them.
Thank you, Minister. That concludes this item of business. There will be a brief pause before we move to the next item of business to allow front benches to change.